I think we're so tempted to believe that, God would deliver just in that moment, right? And a lot of the times he does, but a lot of the times he doesn't. Why? Because God has invested in the process with us.
That's right.
Because if everything was just in that moment taken away, what does that teach us? That God doesn't actually journey with us.
Ooh. Wow. That's good.
If he's just, it's just a sozo, it's a deliverance, like,
good.
That's done.
That's good.
Where's the process in that?
That's good.
So God is teaching us how to, tolerate, there's this part of me that I really hate, this anger or, this addiction or whatever it is. God is saying, well, I'm a journey with you.
Yeah.
I don't need to immediately take it all away at once for me to be in relationship with you.
Welcome to Good Service. We are your hosts, Ben Chung.
And Kevin's Hall.
Each week, we'll be having real, raw, and vulnerable conversations about life, faith, and everything in between, and always over a fire meal.
Come grab a chair. Let's eat.
Folks, welcome back to another episode of Good Service. We are your hosts, Ben.
And Kevin.
And we have a friend in the pod today. He is a singer-songwriter. You may know his music along with Isla Vista Worship. He's a Korean-American indie rocker who also happens to be a doctor of clinical psychology, who is passionate about helping people who struggle with depression, anxiety, bipolar, and OCD. He also helps men navigate cultural, spiritual, and identity conflicts relating to family trauma.
Wow.
Folks, welcome Jin Han to the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Good Service, Jin.
Thank you.
Do you go by Jin or just John? Because I noticed your IG, your personal music one was Jin.
Jin is my middle name. Jin
Okay, cool. So we have so many questions. You have a very, a very eclectic background to what you do, things that you're passionate about. As I always do, I do a little bit of homework on the guest and, who the person is, what they do, and I kind of just get the combination of all of that, and then I just take it to the Lord. I'm like, God, all right, he sings, he's a psychologist, and where do you want us to start here? And some of the music stuff that you have put out, I know that you've had a very interesting journey through your journey as an artist, I'm going to use my air quotes, as a Christian artist, right? And we'll get into why I'm using air quotes, because I understand that there's been a journey where you were kind of known to be a worship singer and singer-songwriter, and then you've kind of shifted into songs that aren't so explicitly about Jesus and the gospel.
Right.
And I know you've gotten some backlash from that, and you people who have followed you have kind of just kind of commented and things like that, kind of criticizing for lack of better words.
Sure.
And you're very vocal and open about addressing those things.
Yeah.
And so there's that side of your journey as an artist to what you do professionally as a psychologist, sort of helping people figure out their story, figure out their identity, and exploring spirituality. And also, I love, even in our conversation that we had on the phone, you were telling me that you're very passionate about helping specifically Asian American men navigate things like identity, who they are here in America, though having roots. Most of us, in our generation, have immigrant parents that come from a different country who have immigrated here. So there's this expectation of upholding and maintaining cultural roots from sort of our motherland, but then here we are living an American experience, and there's all kinds of stuff that comes with that, feeling sort of displaced to I'm not really that, I'm not really this, I'm somewhere in between. And then you throw spirituality in there, all of that, it just gets very convoluted and confusing.
Yeah,
so
it sure does.
I just kind of was thinking about that combination of your journey as an artist, as a psychologist. And I was just praying about that. And so I asked the Lord, what's going on? Where could he be but like where are we at too? Because Kevin and I, we're both Asian American, Korean American, and so I felt like the question that that God was giving me is, what is God helping you to deconstruct and or reconstruct right now?
Yeah.
So what is God currently helping you deconstruct or reconstruct right now? So that's the question. I know that you're the only one that's eating. For those of
You
us
gotta
who
give the
are
review, man.
watching,
You
we're
gotta
like,
give the review.
why do they only have one bowl? Is this like a lower budget day? No. Today we have one bowl because Kevin and I just so happen to be fasting again. So, but we always like to bless our guests with a meal. So we're having a combo poke bowl from Mr. H's Lunch Place here in Gardena, California. Small business that's a staple out here in Gardena, and we love them. We wanted to shout them out. Shout out to Mr. H's Lunch Place. So this is all you, bro. This is their combo poke bowl. Has a spicy tuna, yellowtail, salmon, and then avocado, daikon, all the good the condiments there, the sides.
You got to dig in and give the audience a little bit about what it tastes like, man. And
we're gonna cheers with our drinks, and then feel free to dig in and give us a report of how you feeling about the food.
I'll hit both of these at the same time. Oh yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the flavors that are coming through?
It's just fresh, bro. I mean, it's simple, but it's fresh. I feel like poke can be quite fishy, especially when you're going to a spot that is cheaping out on their ingredients. But this is solid.
I'm not gonna say whom or where, but there was a time where I visited a different spot where the AC wasn't working and everything too, and I was like, dude, but I still ate it.
Oh shit. I hope you were okay.
Dangerous.
Yeah. I was okay.
But
yeah. You know what? I kind of want him to like kind of dig into me. I kind of feel bad because we're not eating.
I know.
So while you're digging in,
dude, there's also the
one
sauce.
of us
I think it's that soy sauce. I think that's the ponzu sauce.
Yeah. I'll kind of jump in on the question and then I'll toss it back. So you could have some time.
Yeah, feel free to enjoy.
We love to our guests to be comfortable. And the question was, what is God deconstructing?
Yeah. What is God helping you deconstruct and or reconstruct? So it doesn't have to be both, because maybe God's just reconstructing something, or maybe He's just deconstructing something. So.
Yeah, I think one of the main things in my life as someone that is in the world of business. So John, as you get to know me a little bit after this, is that I'm in a few different businesses. Okay. That's my background. I'm not as creative as y'all. I wish I had some.
Bro, you're
some
creative,
of that.
bro. In your own lane. You're in your own lane, bro.
Yes, in my own lane. But and I think that has been completely deconstructed in my life is what is work, what is good work, what is finance, what is it, why finance, I guess those things were completely just mischaracterized in my life because all I knew was what the world would teach me. And you usually tend to, at least for me, I wanted things I didn't have, right? So I'm just chasing the lack of. And my family didn't, we weren't like rich or we weren't well off or whatever the other words are for someone that didn't rely on that month-to-month income. I never felt that. So like for us, it was more like we're more on the poor side just growing up. And because of that, I think the chip on the shoulder, I wanted the white picket fence dream. I don't even know who makes up that dream, by the way, but you just want it, You want like a
I don't know if I've ever dreamt of a white picket fence. I think that's just like
I wanted a white picket fence. I wanted it was like me, my wife, 2 kids, and a dog. Like I had the vision, And
all you need is a dog now.
Yeah, I know, dude. Hey, God provides. And so I think the chase of that really just engulfed my entire identity. Absolutely. And what's been really cool, it's like in stages. Like he breaks certain pieces off at a time, because I feel like if he broke it all off, I don't know who could handle that, to be honest. Like collapse. Right, absolutely. And like even in the analogy that's said in the Bible where the shepherd breaks the analogy that is utilized, like shepherds break the sheep's legs because it's going the wrong way. But dude, if you broke everything,
right.
you can't function. You would die. And so I think in the grace and kindness of the Lord, he does it in these little segments for me. And in this new season that it is today, he's really, really breaking off this urgency that I get to go into rational thinking, to do things on my own. And I love the word relapse you just used. I would relapse into my old behavior of control, of like, man, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
Like no one needs to help me.
Right,
I'm gonna
right.
figure this out. And I find myself at like 11, 12, 1 a.m. at night just researching ways to make money. Like, what am I doing? Like, I don't even need to do that anymore. God has broke that off me, but I find myself relapsing.
Right.
And to me, that is a relapse. That's a workaholism. That's like, what am I doing up at 1 a.m. thinking of 10 other ways to do another business?
Right.
Like, what am I doing? It's like, and it's like never's enough, never's enough, never's enough. And that's the relapse for me. But thank God in this season, especially like giving us new tools like fasting and things like that. We just talked about that. It really helped me to just empty all of myself out so I can get saturated by the Spirit of God. And I think that's really centered me to run from that rationality, you know? And that's just the kind of the new thing that's happening right now. It's a much deeper layer that I didn't even think I needed.
Yeah.
Like it's wild, man. It's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. You know, his voice is so soothing that I feel like I'm in like a therapy session right now, dude.
I mean, we secretly just brought you here to just give us some therapy, bro.
That's what it feels like, man. Hey, so
lay
it on us, man. So what in this season for you,
Yeah.
you know, what's going on with the Lord in the context of what Ben just asked? Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I guess what you contextualize is my relationship to both music and my work as a therapist. And I think, so from 2020 to 2023, I was in grad school getting my doctorate while also pursuing music. And I feel like that's mostly where a lot of my, if you want to call it this, the deconstructing period was. So my relationship to my faith after having led worship for pretty much my whole like young adult period of time from like 17 years old. My relationship to worship music, my relationship to politics and kind of the overall, you know, society with BLM happening and with COVID happening. I think for a lot of young believers, that was a pretty disorienting time, realizing how politicized the Christian faith was. I think I was just like a naive kid and didn't realize like, oh, people are wilding out right now. And I think during that period of time, it was a lot of deconstructing, like, okay, like I believe in God, but how much of what I came up with was not necessarily because God ordained it or because this is like the way church or spirituality should be, but because this is just an existing system. This has just worked up until now, right? People are leaving the church in droves. A lot of young people are leaving in droves. Obviously, it's not working anymore, but I feel like right now is more of that reconstruction period of realizing like, I probably feel more Christian than I've ever felt during the season of my life, but my relationship to it is so different after having been in the music industry and having like sat with so many patients, you know, week after week. I think it's less centered around, is this Christian versus where is Jesus in the midst of this? I think there's a big difference between like, oh, I'm a Christian artist, I'm a Christian therapist. People get so caught up in that, right? Like, oh, you don't make worship music, you're not a Christian artist anymore. It's like, when did me being a Christian artist, when did it have to be tied to a specific genre? When did me being a Christian therapist have to be tied to me doing a specific type of therapy? I think at the end of the day, like, my worldview is Christian. My worldview is redeemed by God and by Christ. But the manifestation of it is going to be offensive to some people because it doesn't fit within that framework. Because people are still caught up in like, well, that doesn't look Christian, or like, that's not what I'm familiar with. Whereas for me, I'm much more interested in helping people put words to their experiences. I think that's been the biggest thing God has been reconstructing, is in my music and as my job as a therapist. My number one job, I think, is to help people tell the truth. and to help myself tell the truth,
Wow.
right? But the way we get to the truth is different, because being
that's
dogmatic, being like,
good.
if someone is coming in and, you know, they've been wilding out, they're having an affair, you know, they're doing something to destroy their life.
Sure.
The truth is that they've made a mistake and they're destroying their life, but they know that already, right?
Sure.
That's not the whole picture, though. It's why are they doing that? There's kind of an underlying experience that's happening spiritually and unconsciously
that's good.
that you said rationalize. You can't rationalize why it's happening. People just make these choices. They're not thinking like, oh, I'm going to blow up my life before they make these decisions, right? Like, it just, you act out and it's all out of pain. So for me, helping people get to the truth is not telling them like, okay, what's the 12-step program to get you out of this behavior? Although that helps, right, for addiction. And I'm not writing off those programs, but that's not where I immediately go. I don't go to like a 12-step plan. It's can I be curious about how we ended up here? What's your story? Like, what was it like to come up in, you know, wherever you came up? What was your family life like? What is happening internally? And to me, joining in that person's experience, to me, is much more Christian than telling them like, well, this is how you're supposed to live your life.
Ooh, that's
you know what I
good.
mean? So I feel like that's really the biggest difference in my understanding of my job as a therapist. And even as an artist, it's like, I don't need to write worship music to own my identity as a Christian artist. I'm a Christian artist because I'm a believer and I make art, not because I am within a particular genre or because I write, you know, CCM or worship music. Again, not writing that stuff off. I did it, I still do it. But to me, like, my identity as a Christian artist isn't founded in that. You know what I mean? It's founded in that I'm a creative person that believes in God and I'm a son. I think that has to be foundational.
Man, I love this topic. We've touched on this a few times on this pod with just different creatives that, you know, hop on, who tend to be, like recording singer-songwriters, right? And the topic of like, anytime you're an artistic person or a creative person, the question that comes normally right after that is that, well, are you doing that for God? Like, is the lyrics, or are you dancing to songs that are Christian? Are you singing songs that are preaching the gospel? And I don't know why that's always placed on creative endeavors, but like, we don't place that on like regular occupational thing. When I say regular, like when you're a doctor, where you're a firefighter, like, are you a Christian firefighter? Do you only fight fires for churches? You know what I mean?
That's a good
like,
point, bro.
Like, why is it that, you know, when it comes to creative, the label, are you a Christian blank? And we are Christians. We are followers of Jesus. And then the occupation or whatever is just the thing that we do in like serving society or whatever that is.
Well, I could talk about that.
And I think because that would make it so that, like, if we're only supposed to be a Christian blank, then that would only leave us for certain categories that we're not allowed in other spaces because Christians aren't there. And I mean, Luke was a physician, you know what I'm saying? So like he was essentially a doctor, right? And like, was he a Christian? Did he only see patients who believed in Jesus? I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case, right? And so I vibe with that for sure. And like, I definitely want to touch on that in a second, but like, that inspires my answer to the question of, you know, what is God helping me deconstruct and reconstruct? And it is an identity thing. It has been for a while, and praise God that I think that he's been walking me through it for such a, like, I would say the last few years, maybe the last 4 years. It's been that journey of walking through like this idea that I am what I do, and praise God, I feel like I'm no longer really wrestling with that. I mean, but there are relapse moments where it's like, oh, I have this opportunity to kind of go back to that thing, and I get excited. I'm like, oh, I get to like go dance again. So I get to sort of revive that part of me. So then people will be like, oh, okay, yeah, he still does that. So we can still identify him as that. And I have to like catch myself from getting excited. And And okay, like it's not wrong to get excited to do the thing that you love to do. Like I love to dance and I've been doing it professionally. And so for me to like go back to that and to be excited about it, it's a great thing. God gave me the love for dance. He gave me the gift of dance, and he's like, yeah, do it. I know you love to do it. And I might even still want you to do it in spaces where, you know, it may be for work, but like, you know, who you are is not that. You know who you are.
Right.
Like, you're my son. And I'm like, yeah, Lord, like, I know that. So it's not wrong to be excited about the love and the passion that you have for an art form, but to know that, like, that's not your anchor. That's not the thing that holds you down, because that thing's very fleeting. It comes and goes, and even your relationship with it changes and it evolves, you know? Like, I would imagine even for you as a Christian artist, at some point you were like, I love singing and I love music, but I want to tell different stories too.
Yeah,
like, I don't want to just be bottled up to be just like, I can only talk about one thing.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would say for me that the deconstruction part of it, which I feel like has been a long journey, is the identity piece. And I think what God is reconstructing is, like, it's not to abandon and jump ship on the things that may have had a season. You know, like when something is done, we're like, okay, I'm no longer that. Like, so just put that over there. Like, I'm only this now. But like, it's
That's so black and white too.
exactly.
Though.
It's not so binary, right? It's like this and, right? Like, I dance and I care about people and I care about like meaningful storytelling and conversations, and I want to help people reach breakthrough. And that's the beautiful thing about, you know, being a follower of Jesus. And, you know, as followers of Jesus, we're just called to be disciples, like students, followers, right? And like the scripture that, as you were talking, you said like talking about helping people tell truth, right? And then, you know, John 8, 31 and 32 says, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And that idea of truth, like helping people tell the truth, because when we don't even know what our truth is, then we stay trapped.
Right.
Like when it comes to addiction, when it comes to, you know, traumas that have been locked up that we haven't addressed, and we're like, I don't want to relive that. And unfortunately, like if we don't open that up, that may be the thing that's going to keep us in prison. I mean, you're the expert on this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But like, you know, yeah, it says we're truly just his disciples, and then we will, if we know the truth will set us free. That's really, I mean, I know that's like in context to the gospel and in Jesus, but there is so much truth to that in all of life, you know. And I would imagine as a therapist, when people are unwilling to open up, like you can only get so far, right? Like you have to be vulnerable and let
a lot of trust that, you know.
Right. Yeah. And so like when you said that, like, you know, helping people tell the truth, I think that's powerful. And like, but I see you doing that for yourself. Like my truth is I love Jesus, and I care about these other things in life, and I care about helping people, and I care specifically about like helping men, and like, you know, even more specifically Asian American men, like figure things out. And I think all those layers are so cool. And so yeah. So I like my reconstruction side of it is like to accept accept that there are layers to who you are, and you don't need to be like, okay, I'm just the son of God who just cares about Jesus, and I just care about going to church on Sundays. Like, no, I love Jesus. That's who anchors me, and there's so many layers to who I am, and God's saying, I made you that way. So he's like, embrace all of it. You know what I mean? So
I think it's dangerous to compartmentalize, right? Like, you grew up in the dance industry, and that's like largely big. There are parts of it that are really secular, or parts of it that it's like, oh, I don't know if God is here right now. Same with the music industry. It's like there are parts of it that I'm like, I don't want to be there because I don't feel like the Lord is there. But I think a big temptation, like you said, is to compartmentalize parts of ourselves, where it's like, well, if I'm Christian, I can't do that anymore because it feels too secular. Or if I'm Christian, I can't be friends with that group of people anymore. And yeah, maybe seasonally it might be time to step away. But I think when we compartmentalize those parts of ourselves, we split them off, because they're real parts of ourselves, they creep back up.
Yeah.
And then that's when we start acting out. That's why people kind of fall away from the faith, because they're like, they feel disingenuous because real parts of them have been compartmentalized, right? And they don't know how to find congruence in like, oh, I can be a believer and a professional dancer. I can be a believer and be in the music industry. I can be, a believer and be a business person, in the field. Like, when you're splitting off those parts of yourself and not able to get to a place where those parts of yourself feel congruent, you start acting out.
Yeah.
Right? Or you feel trapped. Like,
Yeah.
those are kind of the two places. You're either stuck or you start acting out,
Right.
Yeah. There's something that, as I ask this question, disclaimer to the audience, if it needs a lot more help, go to a professional. That's why there are therapists. And I always tell people to get a mental health check all the time. But anyways, the question that I had, actually, there was something that you said when you were sharing earlier about where you like to meet them, or you like to meet them where they are, or you like to jump in there with them. You said something like in those words.
Yeah.
And my immediate thought was, as someone that is literally trained in this field of just, speaking to individuals, I guess what are some like best practices when, because as people that are walking with God, we are starting to change, right? We are starting to literally have a handbook on life. Like, so we're starting to become calmer. We're starting to find peace. We're also learning like best practices. We're learning like literally the way to live life the way it was designed. So we're starting to settle. Like, there's a settling that happens. But in that, I know this happens to so many, whether young, old, but just excited folks of faith. They'll run into an individual, whether it's prompted or not, or whether they asked for it or not, but they have this urgency to help this other person, right? Because like they're going through something terrible, whether it's a breakup, something with school, or something with work, or something in family. Like they're already like going into this dark place. You're witnessing it happen. The natural response that I've seen so many times that could happen is like, they start going, you should, right? They start giving them all these tools, right? From what I've seen, it's not the best way to do that. So I would love to hear your take on like, what is a good way when someone near you is literally like going through a hard time,
Right.
Like, what are some good steps to engage in that conversation, and how?
What's up, stewards? So people have been asking us how they can support the podcast, and the best way for you guys to support us is by joining our Patreon. As a subscriber, you're going to get exclusive content such as Q&As, bonus interviews, hot takes, vlogs, and so much more. This show is a labor of love, and we do have financial needs to keep the podcast going. So if you would like to join our Patreon, log on to patreon.com/goodservicepodcast and join our community today. We love and appreciate you so much, stewards. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I feel like I've been put in that position a lot as like a young person. I was in campus ministry for a long time, so you're kind of put in that position where you're like, oh, I need to help this person, but I'm only a year older. I might be the same age. I don't know. I feel like one of the biggest things to acknowledge is like, you need to accept that you might not be able to help them. Right? And I think when you put so much pressure on yourself to be the person that helps them, like, it's too much. It's not sustainable, and it's going to be really hard to even maintain relationship with that person, depending on how serious the situation is, right? And also, I don't think helping the person or changing their circumstance should be the first thing you're thinking about. It's really being curious about like, oh, how did we get here? Because if someone's going through something, it's likely that they're feeling super isolated, they're feeling lonely, they're feeling shame, guilt, whatever it is. Whether it was, a mistake they made or something happened to them, I think one of the easiest things to feel is isolated in moments of pain. So what's going to be more helpful than like, oh, how do we get you out of the situation, is like joining them. Like, that's what you heard, right? That's what prompted this question, is like, how can I join you and be curious about what's going on? Because like, I might not have the advice. I might have no idea what you're going through. I might not be trained in this, right? Like this might be way above my pay grade,
Sure.
but I can provide human connection.
Sure.
Right.
What are some like real tangible ways to join someone? What does that look like to you?
I think sitting with them and
It's good.
tolerating the feelings with them. I mean, that's a lot of what I do, right? As a therapist, it's yes, I come with the expertise, but I think a big part of my training is learning how to hold the emotion and tolerate it and metabolize it.
Wow.
Like I have the capacity, bandwidth, space to hold it, where it's like that stuff gets in me, right? But I have the training to be able to sit with it, right? If you're sitting with someone and it's like that's way too intense for you, then it's like, okay, that might not be your position to be stepping into, right?
Sure.
But if it's something that, let's say someone's going through something that you've gone through before, right? Let's say you have the steps to get that person out of that situation. It might still be more beneficial to join them and say, you know, like, I know how that feels. And I'm really sorry that that's what you're going through. So whether or not you have the tools to help that person, I think just being able to step in and saying like, I'll be your friend. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be here with you.
That's
like
good.
we actually like really underestimate how powerful. I underestimate it all the time as a therapist, but I think when I as a therapist jump too quickly to like, okay, how do we find a solution to this? It's not actually because I'm trying to help that person or that's part of the motive, but another temptation is actually I'm trying to escape feeling that with them.
Wow.
Like if someone is coming in with just this immense amount of shame, guilt, anger specifically, because anger is so foreign to me. Like I don't think I'm an angry person, but everyone has anger.
Yeah.
But to me, like just to self-disclose, that's a more difficult thing for me to feel. So if I have a patient come in and they're pissed off, they're angry, my immediate thing is like, oh, like how do I get them out of this moment? When in reality, they might need to be angry.
Right.
That might actually be the treatment, is that they need to actually work through it, and they need me to be there to tolerate that with them.
Wow.
That might be the cure.
Wow.
But I might try to give them like self-help tools, right?
Yeah,
or like,
yeah.
do you really need to be that angry about that? Like,
Sure.
but that's not for them. That's for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that's
so
That's
the
good to recognize.
we're
that.
talking
Oh,
about
that's
like
so good.
young believers, just young
Yeah.
people who are trying to be helpful. It's
Yeah.
I think taking inventory of like, okay, like am I doing this because I actually care about this person? Which I mean, most of the time it is.
Right.
But can I also acknowledge like, oh, maybe there's a part of me that's trying to kind of escape the guilt that might be coming up. I feel guilty or I feel helpless because this person is in this really difficult
Dude,
situation.
I felt that the moment he said it.
Yeah, I
You know,
never
I'm like,
thought.
dude.
I never thought that like when you're trying to help somebody, that sometimes it could be you just trying to not feel what they're feeling, and like you just
That's-
like it's so
that's
you
so
want to help them
crazy,
so
dude.
that we could just get out of there, so I
Right.
don't have to feel that with you.
Right.
And that's like a weird thing for the person who's trying to be there for somebody, you know what I mean? So yeah, how is that for you so I mean, it's your job to be able to receive someone's where they're at, their emotional state, their state of unhealth, and you're just supposed to receive that.
Right.
And I mean, as you said, like sometimes and probably a lot of times the right move isn't just like, cool, here's what you need to do, just give them a bunch of solutions, and then it's like, oh man, I don't even know how to get there. So I would imagine it's like a lot of it involves you sitting with the person,
Loss of silence. And
receiving what they're feeling. And like, as a person, I would imagine, I mean, I don't know what the training that you've received to just like kind of dismiss that as soon as you walk away and like just kind of, forget about it. But like, I don't know, for me, when I'm really feeling some kind of pain, I feel it, and it affects me too, right? Like when, I mean, the Bible says mourn with those who mourn, and I've done that where I've like literally sat and cried with somebody because of their situation, and my heart literally breaks for them, and I can't just be like, cool, like as soon as I walk away, like, all right, cool, we're good, God. I'm just like, dang, Lord, this is tough. Like, I would imagine for pastors, man, they're probably dealing with people's stuff all day long, and they genuinely like are supposed to care.
I have a hot take on that too, though, because like, look, pastors are there because they're shepherding and teaching, whether it's through literal like scholarly biblical training and also by practice and action. Like, I get that. But I will say, like, and this is more of a hot take to encourage, not to condemn. I don't want to condemn nobody. I think it's totally fine if a pastor, a head pastor, someone that is there, whether it's a small church or a mega church, and there's a member, even a staff member, comes up with like a heinous thing that he cannot figure out with them, and they've been working through it, I think they immediately need to get help. Like, outside of, that pastor needs to go get a therapist. That pastor needs to go find a professional that's in that field. And the reason why I feel this way is I've heard way too many stories of church hurt because it was mishandled by the leadership.
Right.
And it wasn't really their fault. You know what I mean? Like, you weren't trained to deal with that amount of infidelity or whatever, that crazy amount of drugs or whatever it was. It was so big that, bro, you might have been a church planter. Your giftings might have been in like just teaching from the word, and here you are trying to be like somebody's like family therapist, and going nowhere to get help or resources, but you're trying to hold it down for like 3, 4, 5, 6 different families, trying to hold their marriages together, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no amount of money that could pay you to be ready for that. That's I think, to be forgiving to the leader there. Like, I don't like it. I know you're meant to shepherd, but you also need to get help. Like,
I mean, a lot of pastors, even pastors that have come on to our pod, have expressed things like, people expect pastors to be a counselor, a therapist,
That's the expectations placed on them.
An addiction expert, a
Yeah.
lawyer, like a policeman. Like, they want like, you're supposed to have all of it, because I have problems, and you're supposed to be the one that's supposed to give me answers. That's an incredible amount of pressure on a person, and who may not be, and probably is not trained on an expert level in any one of those fields. And so, I would imagine that too. Like, for pastors, there's like a lot of weight that they feel like they have to carry. And so, but I think it takes honesty.
So, you know, curious, like, do you talk to other folks in the field of therapy, psychology, all that? And is there groups that help these amazing ministers and pastors? Like, is that a thing? Is that a program? Or like, how does that work?
Like, are there psychologists or therapists that support pastors specifically?
Churches, like pastors, churches, like, is that a position? Like,
I
just don't know.
I mean, I think there are a lot of therapists who specialize in clergy and working with pastors who are either currently in ministry or have left because they burned out, to be honest. But I think there's also like pastor cohorts to like check in to kind of like normalize or maybe denormalize some of the more toxic structures that exist. Like, you should not be doing all that. Like, that is not like an ethical position to be in. I know your heart's in the right place, but like, that's not normal.
Sure.
I think that's part of the problem, is when pastors are not checking in with other pastors. They're not meeting with folks who are kind of calling them out for like, not to shame them, but it's like, hey, like, that's not sustainable.
For sure.
So I think it can come in the form of meeting with a therapist who specializes in working with pastors. I think there are plenty of folks that do that. But also finding community amongst people who are also doing what you're doing. In the same way that you probably have homies who are believers and dancers, and they're going to understand you in a way that someone who's not a dancer in the professional space doesn't get. For you, other entrepreneurs who understand what it means to be a Christian business owner and operate in a way that's ethical. But kind of, it's more difficult because you need to be more ethical as a believer. Finding folks that really understand what it means to do what you do, like the day-to-day what you're doing. So I think for pastors particularly need to be finding a cohort of folks who really understand the weight.
That's good. I mean, I think, with churches that have an elder board, I mean, Bible says to have like a plurality of counsel, right? Just you're not supposed to do this by yourself. No Christian is supposed to. It's not a solo sport. It's a team sport.
Plurality.
And like by having that sounding board, not only for accountability's sake, but also to like seek help from, like, yo, man, I'm carrying a lot of this weight. Like, what do you think? And then having other wise counsel like pray into it, and be there to divide that burden so they can all share it as well. there's so much.
Yeah, dividing the burden. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. Can you be with people who are able to take on some of the load? Let's say you're just getting crushed, like there's so much that you're taking on, but then you get around other people who might not be in that same season, but maybe have been in that season before. They join in and they're willing to give you some of their bandwidth. Like, let me take on some of that for you.
Yeah.
So it's not as lonely, isolating, crushing, where it's less devastating in that season, right?
Yeah, that's really good. So, as Kevin and I were talking yesterday, because, he was like, oh, yeah, who's our guest tomorrow? And I was kind of giving him, just kind of a little bit of a snapshot of where you're at. And then, we got into this, kind of just, deep-ish conversation about, the Asian American male experience.
Sure.
And then,
Yeah.
because we were trying to explain it to somebody who's not Asian American. And he's like, wait, so, what is that? I keep hearing about that, the Asian American, experience. Is it really that different? And we're like, let us help you walk you through it. And I could already sense myself low key triggered. You know what I mean? I'm but in the sense that I had to relive how I grew up in the 90s as this kid who was just lost. And I mean, I feel like the Lord's definitely done a lot of healing and walked me through a lot of it. But I would love to hear from you why that is a particular sort of thing that you're passionate about. I mean, probably from your own upbringing, and and then toss spirituality and journeying with God into the mix, let alone the cultural things that we have to figure out here. So I'd love to hear just speak into your passion about that topic in particular.
Yeah, as you were sharing that, I think these are tropes, but I mean they're realities, but they're also tropes. Is the two extremes of Asian masculinity. On one side of the extreme, it's the demasculated male. It's the very passive, soft, not sexy, not manly male, right? And then on the other extreme, it's like the K-rage. It's like our dads who are super angry, they're alcoholics, it's too much of that energy, right? So those are obviously extremes, but I think there's not healthy modeling for what Asian masculinity is supposed to look like, especially in America, because these are the tropes, right? Yeah. There's not a model of what does it look like to be masculine as an Asian male in America, right? So I think that's where a lot of the hardship comes from for Asian guys is I don't know what it's supposed to look like. I'm not being fathered into this. I'm not being mentored into this because I don't know if you're 18, 19, 20, it's I don't have anyone mentoring me in this. Yeah. So their models are so skewed that they're kind of left wondering, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So they kind of end up in those extremes too. They're either really passive and don't know how to advocate for themselves, right? Yeah. Because that was never modeled, or they're too aggressive and they become really angry. They might fall into substance abuse. Again, extremes, but I think that is kind of what happens when there's not a solid model for that type of masculinity.
Yeah. Dang. That's go ahead.
So in your personal experience, where did you grow up here in the States?
Yeah, I grew up in California.
Okay. And what was your experience like? And I'm actually even really curious as to, I feel like you pursuing music and then pursuing psychology, to me that sounds very opposite ends of the spectrum of things to pursue. So how did even your growing up experience here as a Korean American male, and then how did you find both of those avenues?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll answer the first question and make my way around to the second one. I grew up in the LA area, grew up in a really loving Christian family. My parents they're still together. They're actually visiting right now.
That's great.
They're entrepreneurs, they hustle, they really grind, and I didn't really grow up with a ton of trauma in my house. It was a pretty chill house I grew up in. So for a long time I felt I had a pretty normal childhood. What I started to realize in my 20s though is that there wasn't a lot of intentional connection with me and my sister, between us and both my parents, but particularly my dad, because he actually moved internationally when I was 15 to do business in Jakarta. So my folks actually live in Indonesia now. So I think the part of the spectrum that I fall in that extreme is the more passive, unable to advocate for myself. Like, I didn't learn that from my dad. I learned how to be responsible. I learned how to work hard. I learned how to, be kind to my partner. Like, there wasn't like a lot of yelling in the house, right? So I didn't grow up with, that's why the anger thing is so foreign to me, because my dad didn't model that. But there was also not like a lot of relational intentionality that I really needed as a young kid, because my dad moved when I was like 14, 15. That's like the exact age that you need a father to be pursuing you and teaching you how to be a man. No one really taught me how to be a man, so I needed to start finding that in subculture. So I grew up breaking, I grew up skateboarding, I grew up, tagging. Like, those were my ways of learning how to that's how I learned how to advocate for myself, like getting in people's faces, like in ciphers. Like, that's how I learned to advocate for myself. It's not healthy though when that's your only model for, oh, this is what it means to be a man. It's to like make someone else feel small. So it's not like I was getting into fights or like I was like acting out per se, but my only model for advocating for myself, for being a man, was by like destroying stuff, by tagging and by skating, or by like making people feel small. Like that was kind of the binary for me.
Interesting. Dominance and destruction.
Which is because I was like a soft, little chubby Korean kid. Like, I didn't know. To me,
hey, shout out to the chubby Korean kids, man. I was a chubby Korean.
That felt attractive to me.
Hey, so was I, man. But it's interesting that you mentioned that you weren't an angry person, yet you're talking about how to express aggression.
It came out in other ways.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be K-rage. It could be like tagging and making someone feel small, and that, and it's interesting that bullying doesn't necessarily mean like beating up kids and taking their lunch money. You know what I mean? That doesn't necessarily have to be that, but it could be through your words, and it's just by just psychologically making someone else feel smaller than you, so you can feel like, oh, I see, I'm better than you. And that's still aggression. So like, and aggression is a form of anger. It's like we don't know how to let that out. And man, dude, praise God that your pops wasn't the angry yelling type. Mine was. So for me, my way of expressing manhood or whatever was when someone wrongs you, or you don't get your way, you need to express it through yelling and fighting and violence. And so I had all that, like the sort of being the rebel and doing rebellious things, tagging, skating, and all that. And not that skateboarding is a rebellious thing, but my mom considered it rebellious because she's like, all the kids who do that are bad kids. You know what I mean? So she just labeled me as like, you're hanging out with bad kids. But then I also had the anger, the lashing out, the yelling and violence thing too. And that had to be something where like, I hated that version of me. Like anytime that came out, and I'm like, man, God, I don't want to be this kid. And God's worked through a lot of that, but there's still remnants of it that lie dormant. And I hate, it takes a lot for that side to come out of me now. Whereas before it would be like any little thing, I just go off. But now it's like, okay, chill out. It's not that serious. But there are still remnants of it that's still kind of like, oh man, that's still deep down buried inside me. And like so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, like about those things that we don't like about ourselves, that we feel like we've healed from, but they're not 100% gone. Like how do we like manage and
I mean, again, I think it comes back to that compartmentalization piece, long word. When we're believers, we want to believe that once we're saved, those parts of us that were really traumatic, caused us harm, and we caused harm, those parts are just resolved. I had a moment at a conference or at, a Monday night gathering where God really spoke to that part of me. It must mean that it's resolved, right? God might have spoken to a big part of it, and a lot of it might have healed, but it's still okay that you're working through it. Because I think we're so tempted to believe that, God would deliver just in that moment, right? And a lot of the times he does, but a lot of the times he doesn't. Why? because God has invested in the process with us.
That's right. That's right.
Because if everything was just in that moment taken away, what does
Yeah.
that teach us? That God doesn't actually journey with us.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's good.
If he's just,
Yeah.
it's just a sozo, it's a deliverance, like,
That's good.
that's done.
That's good.
Where's the process in that?
That's good.
Yeah.
So God is teaching us how to like tolerate.
Wow.
Like,
Dude.
there's this part of me that I really hate, like this anger or,
so good.
this addiction or whatever it is. God is saying like, well, I'm a journey with you.
Yeah.
I don't need to immediately take it all away at once
Yeah. Yeah.
for me to be in relationship with you.
Yeah.
In the same way
Wow.
that I don't need
Wow.
to take this away.
Wow.
That doesn't need to be resolved in full for other people to be in relationship with you.
Yeah.
Despite the anger, despite the shame, despite whatever it is, you are still worth being in relationship with, even though you're in process.
That's so good. I was gonna share something about how redemptive God has been, because I'm a father of two sons, and so
How old are they?
they're 8 and 6.
Okay.
They're 8 and 6. So I get to kind of do it better, right? Than whatever. I didn't grow up with a father, and so being fatherless, all that stuff you guys just shared about is like, yes, double that. It's like yes, or triple that. And then I was just hearing all that, and there was a lot of anger in the home because of this, but I was going to share the redemptive power of God and how I get to live that out with my kids. But you just said something again right now that made me realize what that was. So literally recently, we're playing a board game. Me, my boys, and my wife, we have board game nights, a lot of fun. And my oldest son thought it would be funny to break the rules over and over and over again. So by the third or fourth time, I raise my voice slightly, because I do that because my voice is very loud. So as long as I raise my voice, it usually is the disciplining kind of measure in the home. And so I basically said, hey, like, this is like the third time, please, like, I need you to stop doing that. That's against the rules. Don't do that. It's not fun for your brother, and it's not caring for mom and dad. And so, like, I saw him internalize that. Because you could see it actually when a kid internalizes your words, like in a negative way. Like, it happens fast.
Yeah,
Like, it's almost like a visual sponge of emotion that just left my body and went into his.
Yeah, he just absorbed it.
Like, his smile slightly fades, and you could see it.
Yeah.
And
Right,
then
right.
I saw that happen. I made a note of it, thinking I'll talk to him about it again later. But the game continued. He was a little bit more somber, and the game ended. And then now, like, we did our nighttime routine. He goes, brush his teeth, whatever. And I guess he was a little sad, and mom saw it. Mom was like, you should go talk to your dad. And so he comes up to me, and he goes, what he heard and what it was different.
Right.
And this is where I have to unlearn and undo the things that I've learned growing up, which is, in this moment, he's sad, and then he goes, Dad, I'm sad because I ruined the game for us, and I'm so sorry. But in that moment, instead of like, because my natural demeanor is like, I discipline my son, the natural thing would be like, good, he learned his lesson. And this teaches him how to handle hard lessons, right? Because there is truth in that too, because there is discipline, of course, right? But in that moment, I knew if I just let that go as, it's okay, son, good job, go to bed. I knew he wouldn't think about the discipline, but he would think about the emotions.
He learned the wrong thing.
He learned the wrong thing. I felt it, dude.
Wow.
It was so crazy. And this is why God is so good, is like, I felt that he, not only is he going to think, oh, don't joke around during games. Sure, he might have learned that. But the deeper thing he learned is that by me being and trying something new,
Yes. Yep.
right, I've ruined something. So like, I'm not allowed to be fully myself.
Yeah, yes,
and I actually
yes,
felt that in that
yes,
moment.
yes,
So instead,
yes.
I lifted him up, I put him on the counter, and I just gave him a deep hug, and I just held him. Because I really wanted him to know. I just wanted him to know he could be whoever he wants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wanted him to know that even if he is in that mistake, that I love him so deeply. I needed him to know it. I needed him to know it. So I just held him. I didn't say anything for a second, and all I said was, I just need you to know that you are so loved.
Yeah.
I just need you to know that, okay? And he just started. He was sobbing now. He was just crying uncontrollably for a second, because whatever else that he was feeling, he just needed to know that he was allowed to be himself.
Wow.
And I thought that was, I didn't even realize that was that moment, but he needed it.
Right.
And so after that embrace, I said, okay, son, go to bed. And I don't know how I kept it together during that moment, because I was so emotional hugging him. But I kept it together, and then he went to bed. And I just thought to myself, like, man, like thank you, Lord, that he let me have the openness and empathy to feel my son. Because that's not who I used to be.
Yeah.
I would have missed that moment. I would have missed that moment. But instead of the discipline of being like a clown in like a game, it was more about just him being himself and being allowed to be himself.
Yeah, he's not trying to be difficult.
Yeah.
Hey stewards, we all need prayer, so we're excited to announce our partnership with Seedling. Seedling is an online platform for churches, content creators, and different ministries to connect to their communities through the power of prayer. There'll be real people on the other side, like myself and Ben. We're also logged on. We'll be there to intercede for you through voice and through text. Please log on to seedling.so so we can get connected through prayer. Thank you, guys.
Hey, bro, I'm getting emotional listening to this story because I can't help but think about, I don't know what, if it's a selfish thing or what, but we just can't help but like relate of like our experience, our lived experience, right?
Yeah.
And as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I've never had a moment with my dad where there was a reconciling. There was never. It was, I get disciplined, and then I go away, and I'm afraid, and I cry, and I feel ashamed. I feel all of it by myself.
Yeah.
And there was never a reconciliation of like, son, like, come here, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And there's something with that has affected me. Like, I've never had a moment with my dad. Actually, there was one moment that I would say is the closest thing to him reconciling. Like, he gave me a whooping one time that was so bad. And it was like, it was just straight up like, it wasn't a spanking. It was like
a whooping.
It was a whooping.
Yep.
And literally my butt was black and blue type of whooping.
Oh, man.
And then, I'm in my room, like just like crying.
Yeah.
And then, my dad came in, and like, I don't even remember what he said. I think he said something like, I'm sorry, or something resembling that. And then I just was bawling like I lost it. And I don't know what my emotion was. It wasn't like, it wasn't so much that like, oh, thank you, like my relationship with my dad is restored. I just felt even more like ashamed or something like that, or more just like, man, like you don't even know what you're doing to me type of thing. When you're a kid, you don't have words.
Right.
You just
confused.
react,
Yeah.
and like my reaction was just to like uncontrollably cry. And that was the only time that I've ever had like a reconciling with my dad, but like from like
If you can call it
if you can even call it that.
He tried, bro.
Right?
He tried.
That
bro.
was him trying.
He did it the 80s, 90s way, man.
For
exactly.
sure.
He did it.
And it was just like he like probably hugged me and maybe said he was sorry, and then like and then left. And that just like wrecked me. But like that's the only time I remember. But like, just to hear your story about recognizing this, like, okay, you could have been like, all right, my son learned something. I did a good fathering thing at that moment. But rather you were like, you needed him to know, yes, what you did was wrong, but that does not mean I don't allow you to express yourself. That does not mean I don't allow you to be somebody that you want, to explore your personality. Are you a joker? Like, is that just a part? That'd be one thing, like, don't joke around. Stop that. That's being silly, you know? And it's like, oh, okay, frig, this is just how I express myself with art. I guess I can't be that. But you're like, no, you could be all of that. There's just a time and place. But I love that you embraced him before any other like, here's what you need to do type of talk. It was just sitting in the emotion with him, right? Meeting him where he was at. And then, like, what was his response? To cry, because he just needed to felt like, oh, you're with me. I'm not like separate from you. You know, and like, and I feel like that's
crucial, bro.
Like, it's weird because, you know, it was just last night I was at like a prayer group thing, and someone was saying the way that we've had relationships with our dad is often the way that we see God. You know, and I really was like, dang, do I see God as this like disciplinarian that, you know, if I do something wrong, he'll punish me, and then he'll just kind of be aloof and away from me until like I kind of like inch my way back, like,
crawl
Dad,
out of
is it
my
okay
hole?
for me to come back? And he just kind of acknowledges that I'm there, and it's like doesn't punish me. So I'm like, okay, I guess we're good again. You know, and I think that might have been the way that I've viewed my relationship with God. I mean, praise God, that's not the case now by the grace of God. That's totally the Lord. But like, as I'm just listening to the way, I mean, talk about redemption, man. Like,
seriously,
the way that your pops was with the rage and all that, and you're like, I don't even want to get near that. Even you recognizing the volume of your voice getting to a certain place, and then seeing the reaction, like, oh crap, like I need to fix this, you know.
I think the word that you said that's like keeps ringing back is that made me actually this emotional sharing the story was when you said they just want a journey, that God just wants to journey with you. God just wants to journey with you. And I didn't even realize that is such an important part. It's just to, hey, just be there, just journey, just go through it, you know.
Let me.
So good.
There's a couple years ago, I was interning at Biola's Counseling Center and working with this young dude who I was just like, how do I help you? Like, I'm meeting with my supervisor, and he just so much trauma growing up, and kind of a latchkey kid, like raised by TV, but he's younger than me. Like, it was just, he grew up in a really unfortunate circumstance, and I'm explaining how helpless I felt with this patient with my supervisor at the time. I'm telling her, like, when I picture him and I close my eyes, it feels like he's in the middle of this huge body of water, and he's on a canoe by himself.
Oh man.
Now 혼자, you know, he's just by himself, and it's this like, it's dark. He's cold. He's by himself. He's so isolated. He's scared, and this wrecked me. My supervisor asked, like, what would it be like if you actually just joined him in the boat, in the canoe? And there was some resistance, and I was like, what good is that? You know, like, I couldn't take it in. And the question she asked me was like, do you feel like God can do that for you? When you're lost, you have no sense of direction, when you're by yourself, do you believe that even though you don't have it all together, that God would actually just sit with you in that boat?
Wow, that's so good.
Until you believe that about your relationship with the Lord, it's going to be really hard for you to sit with this patient.
Wow.
You're trying to rescue him from the boat, when in reality you're actually supposed to step into it.
Wow.
But if you don't have your own experience of that with the Lord, if you don't believe that again, it comes back to, like, am I worth being in relationship with, even though I don't have it together?
Wow.
When I'm angry, when I'm ashamed, when I'm stuck in my addiction, when I'm mean to my wife, when I miss it with my kids, am I still worth being in relationship with, or am I going to shame spiral and beat myself up for it, right? Because that's kind of the easiest thing to step into. Because I sit with, every week I sit with guys and gals who, they have stories like that, like in the position of your son, but their dad didn't do what you did.
Sure.
They internalize the shame. I learned that when I try to exert my personality, when I try to do something different, when I try to be funny, when I try to entertain my family, that I ruin everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's little kid mind, you know? Like, he's little. He's a little kid.
For sure.
But then that stays with people.
It does.
Into their 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
These memories reawaken with my patients where they're like, I haven't thought about that since I was like in middle school or high school, or even since it happened, like like the Lord just unlocks it. And it's a moment where, like, for parents, it's like, I don't think I did anything that's that big of a deal, because our parents don't know. They don't they don't realize what they're doing, right? But these are the traumas. I think we even need to reorient how we think about trauma. Like, abuse is trauma, right? But moments like this are traumatic too, because they stay with us for years, but they're more innocuous and they stay hidden.
Wow.
Because we're like, we gaslight ourselves into thinking like, oh, how could that have affected how I relate to people? Like, I'm just soft, you know? It's guys too, like, I'm soft, like, that's just something, like, everyone got punked by their dads, or like, you know? But that's not how God views it.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I think amongst, definitely amongst my Asian American male friends, we're all like, that's how we all grew up, and we just sweep it under the rug.
We all got
it's
whipped.
just like,
Like,
that's normal, and then we normalize something that's horrible, and then like we don't even talk about it, you know, and like legit, like I won't mention his name, but like I have a friend who I'm like currently walking through some tough stuff with, and every time I try to get to a place where I want to invite him to a place of getting vulnerable, he resists, and like he just
heart, man.
he just will not, and then I can even see he'll fight tears, like he doesn't even want to cry, you know, and I'm like, dude, it's okay, like you might need to cry, you know what I'm saying? There might be some breakthrough with just letting some tears out, but there's just like man, let's stop talking. I don't want to talk about that, you know.
There was a cost to it when he was younger,
right? You know, and
that's right.
There's something there that, like, you know, and it's funny because I think I've always just been a sensitive kid, but like I'll cry easily. But then I was also that kid who, like, once I start crying, I'll just like run away or go somewhere else and cry because I don't want anyone to see me. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't want to like look weak or whatever. And I would even like. Dude, my mom, I mean, shout out my mom. I love my mom, but you know, she's also a broken person who needs healing also, but like she would shame me for crying. It's like, boys don't cry. Stop crying.
That's right.
And imagine that coming from like the mother figure who's supposed to embrace that. You know what I mean? Like she's supposed to be the one that gets okay kind of thing. But she'll be like, stop crying, boys don't cry. You know, I'm like, frick, man, I don't even know how to handle this, you know? And so like there's a lot of that where, you know, that shame for things like I can't even express myself for my pain. And what do I do? You know what I mean?
What can I do then?
And then and then that's where you escape to hide in things that do give you comfort. Whatever that could be, addiction, that could be all kinds of things where we want to. And there's this sense of like, I need to hide all the stuff too, because if I can't cry, I need to hide that. What about all this other stuff that I'm ashamed of? There's no way that stuff could see the light of day. Like that also needs to be hidden too, you know? And like, the truth will set you free. Like just bring light to the thing, admit that you need help, admit there's brokenness in you, and then there is healing available, you know? And it's the lie of the enemy that he wants you to think, no, you're stuck there, you know, and it's absolutely not, you know, absolutely not. I mean, like, yes, Jesus is our healer. And I love what you said earlier is that, like, you know, something to the effect of like, we've been healed, but we're also still healing, you know, and Jesus journeys with us through the healing. And I'm even thinking about certain things in my life where I'm like, God, you broke me off of that. What about this thing though? And a part of me would think that like God's not like looking at that thing, or that thing is just kind of like, oh, I guess that's just unfixable, but like I feel like even just in this conversation that the Lord is like, yes, I've broken those things off, and in this thing I'm still journeying with you.
Right, because he's revealing different parts of himself in each of those areas of brokenness, right? In one area he's revealing that, I can deliver you, I can do that. But then if that's all I ever do, then you're not going to learn what it's like to journey with me.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
That's crazy, man.
That's right. Man, that's so good. Man, I never even thought about that. I never even thought about like what it would be like if God really just gave you everything all the time. Because you just don't think about
You
it.
don't
right?
know anything.
Right.
Yeah, and then I'm just like, yeah, I would be pretty foolish.
Yeah. I mean, then there would be no dependence on God,
Nah, there
right?
wouldn't.
Like if everything I wanted He just gave me, then it's like,
Dang.
cool. He's just the vending machine then, right?
Yeah, man.
And that's not how relationship works.
Right.
And I love that, the idea that Jesus wants to journey with us.
Well, I think that's going back to the first question of reconstructing is I think God wants to give us a more comprehensive or like whole picture of who he is. Like he's a person. He calls himself a person for a reason. Personality, you know, like he wants to reveal parts of his personality and character to us.
Yeah.
But I think when you grow up in a particular religious framework, you're given, you know, God's either super stoic or he's, you know, he provides and he like, you know, it's limited into whatever framework you grew up in. But I think the goodness of God is that he reveals himself to us throughout our lifetime.
Yeah.
Not just the moment that we got saved, but it's throughout the course of our journey with him that he starts to reveal more and more about himself, while also revealing more and more about us. I think we're strangers to ourselves a lot of the time. And I think that's the goodness of God too. Can you reveal to me the parts of myself that are strangers? That's a stranger to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a song lyric right there, bro.
Yeah.
But speaking of journey, like where are you at in your journey with music and creativity?
Yeah.
Along with what you're doing professionally.
Yeah, I want to know what takes what of your time.
Yeah,
What
that's a
does that
good
look like for
question.
you?
Yeah, so just for context, like I came up leading worship in Campus Crusade, a ministry called Epic, which is the Asian American part of Crusade up in UC Santa Barbara, and then got involved with Isla Vista Worship, which is just the worship team for like a tiny church up in Santa Barbara. My goal was never to make music. I always just wanted to like lead worship, serve, and like hang out with the Youngs and Nunas. Because I have an older sister, so I have really good relationships with homies who are older. That was always how I related to people.
Oh, God.
Right?
I see.
So I just wanted to, you know, spend time with the older homies and like serve at church.
Yeah.
That was my MO, right?
Yeah.
And I loved it. I was good at it. But Isla Vista Church, despite how small the church is, the music ministry was always pretty big, or it had grown to something pretty big. So I started recording music professionally the same season of life that I started grad school. So I was mostly just leading worship and then transitioned into both grad school for my doctorate while also making music at the same time. One of you said those feel so different, and I think to me they also felt really different. So I kept them compartmentalized, going back to that compartmentalization thing.
Yeah.
Like I kept them pretty separate because I didn't know how to reconcile those two parts of myself.
Yeah.
I'm a studious kid. I'm really good at school. I did really well in college, and I'm about to do really well in grad school, but I'm also really creative, and I don't know how those two things intersect. So for years, I actually kept them separate. So I didn't tell any of my professors, really. I didn't tell any of my supervisors.
Oh, like really separate.
Yeah, it was like, what's the point in sharing this part of myself?
Sure.
Like this, if anything, this jeopardizes what I do as a therapist. I don't know where I got that thought, but I think because so much of being a therapist is about being kind of secret to the patients that you work with. Being a musician is the opposite. You're being so open.
Yeah.
You're disclosing so much information about yourself.
Yeah.
It almost felt like there were
wow.
two contradicting parts of myself.
Wow.
So that was the context that came up in as I was, you know, getting trained as a clinician and also coming up as a musician in the music industry.
I see.
And then I think about a year and a half ago, I started kind of looking through my songs, and I was like, dang, this is a lot of like psychological content. Like this is a lot of stuff about the heart. This isn't just worship music. Like this is a lot of storytelling, and a lot of what I'm doing through music feels familiar to what I do as a therapist, whether in my own therapy or with my own patients. And then I realized, like, dang, I need to tell my supervisors that I'm a musician. It was this like conviction that came over me, like, if I'm gonna own both parts of my identity, I need to be forthright and tell the people that are supervising me. So these are the first, and they're still my supervisors now. They were the first people that were overseeing my clinical work, where I was like, hey, like, I'm just going to be up front. Like,
That's good.
I'm a musician. Like, I'm a professional musician. I do this for real, but I'm also so passionate about being a clinician. Can you help me navigate this? And I was so surprised. One of my supervisors said, you know, musicians actually make really amazing therapists. You guys make great therapists because you know how to listen between the lines. So it wasn't just like her tolerating the fact that I was a musician. It was actually her affirming these two things need to exist at the same time.
Wow.
That's dope.
They
That's
need
so
to.
cool.
It's not that, oh yeah, you have permission to do both. It was, no, because these are parts of you, they need to exist at the same time. And you need to find where
so
it
good.
intersects, right? But where does it intersect? It's me. I'm the common denominator when it
Right.
comes to these things.
Yeah.
And that's the case for so many of the things that so many different identities that we try to kind of balance and navigate and keep separate is where
Yeah.
the intersection is.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of like, how do I make sense of what it means to be both, you know, a business person and a podcaster and, you know, a believer or a dancer or, you know, like a community leader or therapist, musician.
Sure.
So I think at this point, where I've come to is both the music and the therapy is we're putting words to the experience
Yeah.
because often life just happens to us.
Yeah.
I think both the mediums of songwriting and creation and therapy, it gives us vocabulary for what's happening to us instead of just letting life happen to us.
Right.
So there's kind of a mastery to it.
Yeah, I think what you said there was so powerful in your experience, and don't want this to be a hot take, but I really don't. I've learned that I really hate compartmentalizing anything.
Yeah,
Like that's just kind of
right,
where I'm becoming as a man,
Right.
and I'm learning that like I really do want to blend everything that I do, because before I was even given advice that I misunderstood. It wasn't their fault. I just took it the wrong way, where I was juggling too many plates and I wasn't allowed to. That's kind of how I thought. And if I were to do that like yourself, I needed to keep everything separate the
And
best I
secret.
could, right? In secret.
Yeah.
And so it almost felt like I was having like multiple personalities, right? And
For
whatnot.
sure, yeah.
And I think one thing I learned that even for any listeners, like it's even like keeping faith separate from work, because in the workplace you said, hey, you don't say you're a Christian, you know, janitor, or you're a Christian like business guy. And you know, there's a big reason why, because when you say that, they go, you can't do anything wrong then.
Sure.
I mean, that's one of the main reasons why people don't do it. But the other part is they literally put structures in place in most places, at least in the U.S., where you can't even talk about faith because it's an HR problem or whatnot. And so with all of that to be said, I just think compartmentalizing to me is just something that I found to be extremely toxic for my identity.
Right.
It's been very toxic to just even expand and learn and grow more with God in my relationship with him. So it's been a really healing season of just kind of allowing all of it to be one and just being and saying, you know, like dancer and right, podcaster and you know, and I think that's been super healing for me. Like super healing. So I want to say, man, I love how you shared that, because I was like, it's crazy that you thought keeping it separate was the right move.
Right.
But
yeah,
then,
it was out of a good place.
But
sure.
I also understand why you did it. I was like,
Right.
oh yeah, that makes sense. But then it's like, it is beautiful that it all comes to, hey, music is therapy, man. They say that all the time. They say it all the time.
Well, think about it this way. I think we don't think about being in relationship with ourselves. It's kind of a weird kind of way to put it, but think about it this way. Let's say I'm meeting with you, and I love that you lead a community group in LA, right? But then something about you being a dancer really offends me. So whenever you bring up dancing, I kind of shut it down. Or you can tell by my body language that I'm kind of uncomfortable. I'm like kind of weird about it. And you're like, okay, word. Like, I'm not going to talk about what I do as a dancer. And I'm just going to talk about what I do as a podcaster, community leader, connector.
Yeah.
So there's a part of you I'm accepting. But then this other part of you that's really important to you is not welcome in that space. Is that a healthy relationship? No, because you're not seen. You're like, well, this is a pretty important part of me. There's a part of me that I feel like I can't fully be myself. But when it comes to our relationship with ourselves, we keep everything so separate. So we're like at war with ourselves. And it comes to spiritual convictions too. Like, I'm a believer, but like there are certain questions I have that don't feel very Christian. So I'm just not going to think about it. So we split it off, right? So consciously we're like, well, I don't need to think about it. But unconsciously, it's like an inner war that's happening, right?
That's right.
And then we're like confused, like, why do I feel so distant from God? It's like, well, you're not asking, you're not allowing yourself to be real about these conflicts inside of you, right? Yeah, it's like poison.
Wow.
It's like a civil war inside yourself. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, this is such a dope topic, and I don't think we've ever really like delved into it like this in terms of like just even unpacking that
For real.
Asian American male Christian experience.
It's a lot of intersection.
That's so like specific, and I know a lot of our listening audience out there, this will resonate with them. So dude, Jin Han, thank you so much for like coming through and allowing us to open up this road, and there's so much more conversation to be had. But we do call this show Good Service. We love to frequent these restaurants, these amazing food establishments that provide good food and good service, which ultimately creates a good experience, which is why we keep coming back. So shout out to Mr. H's Lunch Place for blessing us with the combo poke bowl again. We love you guys and want to bless you guys. But yeah, good service can mean different things to different people, good and service. So what does good service mean to you, Jin Han?
Oh man, what does good service mean? I think showing up as yourself and being good at what you do. I think allowing yourself to be good at what you do, and I think if you are congruent within yourself and unapologetically showing up as yourself, people are going to feel permission to be themselves too. So I think that's good service.
Good.
Whatever industry you're in, if you're real, the people around you are going to feel freed up to be real. So yeah.
That's really good, man.
That's good.
Yeah, feel free to be yourself. That's really good. So we like to ask our guests, what's a good way that we can serve you? But a lot of our guests will ask for prayer. So what is a way that we here or our listening audience right now can be praying for you in this time?
I mean, I think there are so many therapists and there's so many musicians, and for the people who would benefit most from seeing me to find me, and for the people who would benefit from seeing someone else to be sent to those people as a clinician, and for the people who would really resonate with my music to find it. But if that music's not going to resonate with you, that God would send those people to other artists. So
love it.
Yeah.
No.
And where can people find you if they're looking for you?
Seaside Psychotherapy is the private practice that I'm at, and then Jin Han or Jin Han Psychology on Instagram.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, we'll definitely plug all that in the show caption. Well, dude, thank you so much for spending time with us, man, and hanging with us and just walking us through this convo, man. This is really, really rich and fruitful, man. So
thank you for having me. Yeah, for real. Thank you for having me.
Stewards, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Good Service. We'll catch you guys on the next one. We love you guys. Peace. We out. Stewards, thank you so much for supporting Good Service. People have been asking us how you can support the pod. We have a Patreon.
Yes, if you guys go on there, there's additional content. We're going to be doing Q&As, different announcements, and other types of special things just for our tight community. So thank you guys for supporting us on Patreon.
Please subscribe. We love you guys. Peace,
Jeez.
Stewards.